Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews video, and in today's video we're going to be checking out the replacement for this book. Yes, very exciting because we have got the latest Tau Empire Codex. So it feels like Warhammer community have been teasing this for some time, and I think it might have been delayed a little bit. Actually, I think it should have been out a little bit earlier. But it is now finally up for pre-order at the time of this video being released. So you're only a week away from having this in your hands and playing some 9th edition Tau. This is a very exciting book. So I've had this for a little bit of time. I have done a written review, which you can find over on spruesandbrews.com. I will put the link in the description as well, so you can check it out at your leisure. I've tried to cover as many of the sort of key parts of the book in that video. And as we flick through this book, I will be picking up on some stuff. Now, this book is very different to the previous Codex. There's a lot that's changed, which I hope to pick up on as we go through the book. I mean, we all know what these videos are like. You guys really want to see the data sheets. That's absolutely fine. We will cover, or at least we'll go over every page in the book, so you can do that to decide whether or not this is a purchase for you. If you've got any Tau models, I think you'll want to pick this book up because I think it's going to be good. I mean, I'm not a competitive player. I play a lot of narrative, and I don't really make competitive builds. But from going through this book, I think we're going to see this. We're definitely going to see Tau moving up the rankings, I think. They've been not great in 8th, apart from certain lists. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they do competitively when this book launches. So we've got a nice cover with a commander on the front there. We'll flick it over. A nice army shot of the Tau. Like I say, a lot of this has been teased on Warcom, but there's so much more in here. Changes to marker lights, changes to drones. Yeah, it's a very exciting book. But I'm glad the Tau have had a lot of buffs in shooting and stuff, because they miss out on 2 phases. They don't have any psychers, and in fact, there is no psychic defense in this book, apart from 1 relic, which we'll cover later on in the book. And also, they're still terrible in combat, unless you're Farsight. He's pretty tasty in a fight, but apart from that, yeah, it's all about shooting for the Tau, really. So, introduction to the army, and then we start off with quite a lot of lore. Back to when the Imperium first made contact with them, and then how the Tau rapidly go through their technologies. It doesn't take them long at all to get up to speed. I remember when the Tau first came out, I don't think they could travel out of their sector, and now I believe they can. Some nice maps showing how the Tau have expanded, all their homeworlds. Explaining the caste system. So the fire caste like your warriors, your earth caste like your builders, water caste are like your diplomats, and your air caste is obviously your air force. So this book's very good. If you've never played Tau before and you want to know a bit of their background, this fills you in. There's not too much of the like bang up to date stuff in here. It touches on it, but we've seen a lot of like the story moving forward at the moment with the Indomitus Crusade and the rift in the universe being covered in supplements in these Warzone books. So I would expect the Tau to just feature more and more in those if you want to keep up to date with what's going on in 9th, sort of story wise. Ethereals, oh boy, these are better in this edition, but we'll come to those a little bit later on. But yeah, some background on Onshi, the most popular ethereal. Talks about the fire caste. They're like your fire warriors going up to your crisis suits. There we go. The battle suits, which are one of the main draws to this army, are the absolutely gorgeous battle suits. They always remind me of like Japanese animation. Gundam and stuff like that is what originally drew me to the army, and it's what's drawn me back as well. I was working on a sister's army, but then this book came along, and I was like, gonna have to do these first, I think. In fact, I'll touch on it later on, but I will be doing a bit of a Crusade kind of article or ongoing series over the next few weeks, that'll be well worth checking out. We'll talk about that later on in the book, and it's also covered in the review as well. What I always find is really handy, especially if you've never played the army before, and this is something the last couple of books have been a lot better at. You tend to get a lot of like upgrades for your suits and stuff on your sprues, and the instructions don't tend to tell you what they are. But what this book does very well is it shows you what these strange looking bits on your sprue actually are. So your shield generators, your multi-trackers, your positional relays and stuff. And it also shows you quite clearly your different types of drones as well. So straight away you can tell what, when you're building your models, what you're putting on them. Very early days, I remember when I think I first collected Tau, it might have even been the first book they ever had. It never really explained, I don't think so anyway, what each of these things are. So I was just like sticking bits on because that looked pretty cool. Yeah, let's put that on. Didn't realise that they actually were attributed to an upgrade or war gear. But there you go. That was a very, very, very long time ago. We've got Shadow Sun. She obviously had a gorgeous new plastic model with the last book. Carrying on with the lore. The expansions, they push out and come into conflict with all these other races. More recently, Warzone Chalnaf. Of course, we had some upgrades to the Pathfinders that came in the Killzone box, along with the Adeptus Sororitas when they got their new System Novitiates. And then it starts giving you a little bit of background on each of the Sept. So these are like your sub-factions within the Tau. These have all got, these first few ones here, these have all got rules, which will come across shortly in the book. But then I believe it does also later on give you some other ideas about other Septs that don't specifically have rules, but you could make rules for. Farsight Enclaves, Commander Farsight. Can't wait for him to finally get a plastic model. Can't be that long off. The crew, so the Tau are famous for bringing in different races for the greater good. The crew are buffed in this book. No new units, unfortunately. No new models either. But I have a sneaking suspicion as each edition comes now, I think the crew are going to be pushed. It'd be nice for them to almost become their own army eventually. I don't know if that'll ever be the case. I mean, what this book does allow you to do is run for the first time, or I believe the first time, out of a Codex. Maybe supplements have allowed you to do it in the past. But out of the Codex, you can build a crew army. Yeah, it's not going to be very competitive, but think about for something like Crusade, that'd be absolutely fantastic to build a Crusade. You'd have to spell Crusade with a K, clearly. But yeah, I think that could be very, very fun. See also background of the crew there. And then we move on to, strangely, nothing about the Vespids. I've not skipped the page there, have I? No, nothing about Vespids, because they're the other alien race that have a data sheet in this book. But no, they don't get covered, unfortunately. So explains the different markings that you can find on your Tau. Ghost Kill Battlesuit, nice. Different colour schemes. Got Farsight there. The Farsight colour scheme, that is not Farsight himself. The Storm Surge. What a model this is now. When we come across his data sheet, we'll have a quick chat about him. You've probably seen the Warhammer article. Strength 12, Pulse Blaster. Mental. Absolutely mental. Not Strength 12, Damage 12, sorry. But we'll talk about that later on. Again, some more examples of schemes. Vespids, Kroot. There we go. So that's the lore. We very quickly went through all of that because if you're really interested in reading about the Tau, you're going to want to read that in your own time. You don't need me to talk you through it. But I will point out some of the key things in the rules that will be of interest to most. You got your Combat Patrol box. This is up for pre-order at the same time as the book. Now, what I will be doing is Games Workshop kindly, as well as this book, they've sent us a combat patrol to build a crusade out of. So my intention is to run a series of articles which will start with this combat patrol and then build on it to create a bigger crusade army, chart their success, see how they get on. When we get to the crusade parts later on in the book, we'll talk a little bit more about that. You've got your detachment abilities, so if you make a legal army, what benefits you will get. Importantly, it mentions about Farsight in here. So for Farsight Enclaves, you cannot take an ethereal for law reasons. The maximum one commander in each detachment is still a thing, unless you're Farsight. If you go Farsight Enclaves, you can have 2 commanders per detachment. So if you want to load up on commanders, or even battlesuits in general, then the Farsight Enclaves is for you. But what I will say is the ethereal is much better in this book than he's ever been before, thanks to invocations, which is kind of like a prayer system. Again, we'll come across the rules for that later on in this book, but needless to say, he's much more worth taking. Explain signature systems, stratagems, and warlord traits for your septs. So these are your sub-factions. These each come with a tenant, so a series of rules for the models in your army. An exclusive warlord trait that you can choose to take or not. A signature system, which again you can choose to take or not. And an exclusive stratagem for your sept. Now, the most balanced and probably easiest for sort of newcomers to the army is probably the Tau Sept. It's also home to our special characters as well. So the special characters are still locked behind their septs. Shadow Sun being an exception. Although she has got the Tau Sept keyword, she can be used in any of these other septs. She just doesn't gain the benefit of the sept. So if we take, for example, the tenants here, each time a unit with this tenant is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll or 1 wound roll when resolving the unit's attacks. So she'd be able to take advantage of that. You also add 3 inches to the range of aura abilities, which is very good, especially on like stuff like the ethereal. And each time a model is tenant intones an invocation that is not an aura or use an ability in your command phase that specifies a range, you add a further 3 inches. So you've got bigger bubbles in a Tau Sept force. The Warlord trait is pretty cool. Each time the Warlord loses a wound, you got a 5+ feel no pain, basically, which is pretty handy. The signature system is vectored maneuvering thrusters, which we have seen on Warhammer. So this adds 2 to the bearer's move characteristic, and then once per battle round, if something declares a charge on you, you can basically run away, which is pretty cool. I think it's your full movement as well. Until the end of that phase, the bearer cannot fire overwatch just to defend. Yeah, you can make a normal move. Yeah, so that's a really good relic to put on a cold start battlesuit. Get out of dodge, sort of thing. And the Tau Sept specific strategy is focus fire. It does cost 2 CP, but it allows your army. Say if you manage to wound an enemy model with I don't know, a unit of fire warriors, then the rest of your army for that phase gets +1 to the attack's wound roll when firing at that unit. So if there's a unit that you want dead, as long as you've wounded it, you can then spend the 2 CP, and everything else that you pump into that unit is going to get +1 to wound, which is really good. It's quite expensive, but it's really good, and it just makes sure that unit dies. I'm not going to cover all of them, because you can see them on the video. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I wanted to pick out a couple of these septs in particular. I know, I think it's pronounced Vior'la. I will say my pronunciation of some of these Warhammer words is absolutely awful. Always has been. No matter how big of a Warhammer fan you are, the language sometimes is just a bit of a barrier. These are like your really aggressive sept. So at the start of your first turn, for each unit from your army that is wholly within your deployment zone, you get 2 inches of extra movement. So it pushes you up the board quicker. Your Warlord trait that you can choose from is a regen of CP. So each time you would spend a command point on a Tau Empire strategic ploy or wargear stratagem, roll a d6 on a 3+ that CP is refunded. It actually points out it has to be one of those two types of stratagems, so just be careful there. The signature system that you can take is for a commander model only. At the start of your shooting phase, roll 1d6 on a 2 to 4. The closest enemy model within 18 inches and visible to the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 5+, the closest enemy unit within 12 visible suffers D3 mortal wounds. It's okay. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's okay. And their stratagem is called Hot Blooded. For 2 CP, use the stratagem in your shooting phase when you're selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time modelling that unit, excluding drones, makes an attack that targets the closest eligible target, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts a mortal wound on the target, in addition to normal damage, to a maximum of 6 wounds. This is very similar to, say, Wrath of Mars for the Adeptus Mechanicus, aside from it has to be the closest enemy unit for this stratagem to take effect. So, yeah, pretty good. It's not one of the best Septs, but if you want to push forward quickly in that first battle round, and there are reasons you might want to do that, as we'll soon see, then it could be the Sept for you. Sasea and Daliath are the next ones. These ones tend to, these are a bit more sneaky. For example, Sasea, they, each time range attack targets a vehicle, you get dense cover if it's more than 18 inches away, or if it's an infantry unit that you've got being shot at and they're more than 12 inches away, then you get dense cover. Also, your army doesn't suffer the penalty for movement, fire, and heavy weapons, which is that within. Okay, that within engagement range, right? Fair enough. I thought that was all the time, but no, it's when you're within engagement range. Slightly broadsides can still shoot without a -1 penalty if they've been charged. So they're both pretty cool. Again, you've got exclusive Warlord trait, signature systems, and stratagems. But I've got to mention these two. So, Bork'an. These have been featured a little bit on Warcom, and I think this is probably the strongest Sept in the book. So their tenants, you add 4 inches to the range characteristic of ranged weapons that this tenant are equipped with. Always handy. I'll take a 34-inch pulse rifle, thanks. Each time a ranged attack is made with a weapon that has a strength characteristic of 7 or less against a vehicle or battlesuit unit with this tenant, subtract 1 from the strength. That could mean, a weapon could be wounded on a 3+, it's now wounded on a 4+. Depends on obviously what the strength of the weapon is and what it's shooting. But that could be quite handy. It's quite an unusual one. You don't see many rules where it's sort of if the strength is less than a certain figure or more than a certain figure. Not anymore anyway, not in 99th, but here it is for this Sept. Your Warlord trait is Secret Perfection, so each time your Warlord makes a ranged attack, you improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Nice. And an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target, in addition to any normal damage to a maximum of 3 mortal wounds. Again, I like that. The amount of firepower that a commander can now kick out, there's a good chance you might get those 3 mortal wounds each phase, which could be clutch. Their signature system is only applicable for a commander. You select up to 2 ranged weapons the model is equipped with. Each time the bearer makes a ranged attack with one of those weapons, targets a unit within half range, you add 1 to the attack's wounds roll. Very good. But then you come to their stratagem. Their stratagem, it costs 2 CP. You use it in the shooting phase. You select 1 model in the unit and 1 weapon that model is equipped with. Until the end of that phase, each time the model makes an attack with that weapon, invulnerable saving throws cannot be taken against that attack. This can be used on a whole plethora of stuff. You could use it, you could take a gamble and use it on something like a plasma rifle or fusion blaster, maybe on something with a high rate of fire, like a high output burst cannon. But what you really want to use this on is the Storm Surge's pulse blaster that does flat 12 damage. Just ignore an invulnerable save. Bye-bye tank. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. My favourite Sept, because the tenants are strong. You know, the Warlord trait's good. The signature system's good. The stratagems fantastic. Farsight Enclaves are up next. I will say at this point, aside from this page and the datasheet for Commander Farsight, there is no other content for this Sept, which I know has disappointed quite a few people. They expected a selection of Warlord traits that kind of, they're their own unique thing, aren't they? You know, they've had quite a few supplements and stuff, and I think we will get another one. Whether that will be in a Warzone book, which I think is probable, or their own separate release, which is probably less possible now, because we're seeing a lot of like these extra bits, like the new Sisters rules for the Order of the Bloody Rose being in the next Warzone book. I think that's more likely where we'll see some more Farsight content. I keep hearing these rumours that when that supplement comes out, we're going to get a new plastic Farsight. Love to believe it. I don't know if it's true or not. I do think you will get a plastic model eventually, but I don't know if it's going to be in 9th edition, unfortunately. Wish I could clear that up and say, yeah, there is one in the pipeline. I don't know. I just hope there is. So what do the Farsight Enclaves have going for them? Their tenants are, each time a model of this tenant makes a ranged attack that targets a unit within 12, the target is treated as having a Marklight token. Very cool. So try and remember that, because I'm not going to cover the new Marklight rules now, because it'll take me a few moments to explain it, which makes it sound like it's going to be really complicated. It's not, but I will explain later on when we come to that part in the book. Regardless, to say, that's good. Each time a unit of this tenant is selected to shoot or fight, you can re-roll the wound roll when resolving that unit's attack. Oh, one wound roll. Still good though. We all like free re-rolls. The Warlord trait is Master of the Killing Blow. So each time your Warlord makes an attack on an unmodified wound roll of a 6, you improve the armor penetration by 3. And the model that attack is allocated to cannot use any rules to ignore the wounds it loses. So no feel, no pain for your opponent. This is where you also find our one and only Psychic Defense relic in the book. It's the Talisman of Arthas Monarch. In your opponent's psychic phase, the bearer can attempt to deny 1 psychic power as if it were a psychic, and you also get to add 1 to that deny the witch test as well. That's it. I mean, 1 psychic power, okay, could be key. I don't know. If there's not really psychic defense, just don't bother with it and just try and outshoot your army. If you're up against 1,000 Suns, 1 deny is not going to really help you much, I'm afraid. I suppose if you're just up against an army with maybe 1 Primaris Cycle or something, then yeah, it could be handy. Also, I'm not sure why it's in the Farsight Enclaves. Maybe there's something in the lore that explains that. Their stratagem is called Drop Zone Clear. Use this stratagem in your movement phase when a Farsight Enclaves battlesuits unit from your army set up using the Manta Strike, basically Deep Strike, or the Homing Beacon action. Until the end of the turn, each time a battlesuit model in that unit makes a range attack, you can re-roll the hit roll and you can re-roll the wound roll. If that unit contains 4 or more battlesuits, the stratagem costs 3 CP, otherwise it only costs 2. So, yeah, a very good stratagem, quite expensive, but full re-rolls on both hit and wound is very strong. It's a very aggressive Sept. You know, it wants to be blowing stuff up on the turn that you deep strike. So yeah, I'd say Bork'an is definitely my favourite, then probably Tau, then probably the Farsight Enclaves. Not sure if you guys agree, but I think that's my opinion. What is very popular now is building your own sub-faction. There are rules in the Tau book to do that, with a slight twist. So we've got a series of rules which fall into different sectors. You get to choose 2 in total, 1 from each sector. However, say for example you choose a rule from Sector D, the second rule that you would pick would only be from A or E. it couldn't be from B or C because they're not connected in the galaxy. It's kind of to it's like looking at their lore, like how they expand. It's that's I think that's why they've done it. If you choose one from A though, you've got full reign of what your second one can be. You can't take two from one sector either. And here are those choice of rules. I've had a look through these. There's some good ones, some not so great ones. I can't see a combination here that would be better than one of the pre-created septs, but maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you guys will see something here and go, that goes really well with that, and that would be quite a powerful combination for the army that you want to make. So there you go. And you've got some examples of some septs that aren't, the main sort of 6, and their colour schemes. We then move on to the stratagems, and what really got me excited about this book is that normally when you look at the stratagems in other books, there's a few that pop out as being really strong, but then there's some that you're like, yeah, I'll probably use that kind of once in a blue moon or never at all. Whereas with the stratagems in this book, I'm thinking, I'm probably going to encounter something at some point which would involve me using every stratagem in this book, which is really rare. But I honestly think that the stratagems are really strong in this, and I could see myself using the majority. We're going to pick out a couple that I have mentioned in the review, mainly because they team up quite well. So if we take, for example, Relentless Fusillade, 1 CP, you pick a strike team unit, so a fire warrior unit. Instead of following normal rules for rapid fire weapons, you make double the number of attacks. So you're firing at basically full rapid fire at your full range. So if you're playing Tau, for example, it's going to be 34 inches, which is... Bork'an, 34 inches, which is 8 firing twice. And each time a core model in that unit makes a range attack, you improve the armor penetration characteristic. The armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. So suddenly your pulse rifles are -2 AP, which is very good, and there's other ways of buffing that as well. Pulse Onslaught for 1 CP, unmodified hit rolls of 6s automatically wound. So say you use those two together, you're getting the maximum number of shots, and to give you the maximum amount of chance to get the unmodified 6 to automatically wound. And then, of course, when you automatically wound, you're getting the bonus on the AP as well from the first strat. Very cool. Whilst we're looking in this section, Point Blank Volley was featured on Warcom a couple of days ago. When you're in combat, you pick a fire warrior team. Their weapons become pistol 2 instead of rapid fire. So it allows you to shoot in combat because you don't really want to be in combat. Your Tau. Combat Tau are not great. I wish they were, but they're not. So that's a really powerful stratagem. You got your normal extra relic, extra warlord traits, which is cool, especially if you're taking a special character, but you want to take a warlord trait. Saviour protocols. So I haven't actually gone over these rules yet, so we might as well mention it now. Saviour protocols as it was has gone, I'm afraid. Rest in peace, Saviour protocols. Instead, we've gone back to being able to purchase drones as part of units, so the drones will stay with that unit. Although there is a stratagem in here, designated tasking for 1 CP, you can actually separate your drones from your unit, including devilfishes if you wanted, and they then go off into their own little drone unit themselves. So when, if you've got a unit, say, of Crisis Battlesuits, and you've paid for some drones to hang around with them, you've still got, you can still pass wounds off onto your drones, fine. But obviously, previously, you would just grab a drone that's nearby and take the hit for you on I think it was either a 2 or a 3+. The closest we've got now to that is Saviour protocols for 1 CP. As long as a drone is within 3 inches of the unit that's been targeted, or 6 inches if the unit that's been targeted has got a drone controller, you can basically pass off the damage to that drone. The damage can become 0, the drone blows up, happy days, you've managed to survive that. Obviously, normal rules for stratagems apply, so you can only use that stratagem once per phase. So, saving protocols is still there, more so with the fact that you're going to have drones in units, but I think this will be a very used stratagem going forward to try and negate some of those wounds. We've got a couple of strats for Crute. Trap well laid, I think, was featured a couple of days ago. We've got the Desert Tasking, which we've just spoken about. Submunitions for the railgun. We've got the ionized shock field. If you can use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a model in the enemy unit is destroyed as a result of an attack made with an ion weapon. So we see these a lot in the Pathfinders. Until the start of your next shooting phase, the enemy unit cannot be affected by any aura abilities. So they basically have aura abilities switched off, which is very strong. You know, there's a lot of aura abilities out there now to give rerolls or feel no pains, stuff like that. That, you know, as long as your ion weapon destroys a model, it switches auras off for that unit. So quite a strong stratagem. Maybe it's selective in its usage, and you've got to kill something, but it's definitely still a worthwhile investment if the situation comes up. Wall of Mirrors is back for 1 CP. It basically allows the stealth battlesuit unit or ghost keel that's by a battlefield edge to go back into strategic reserves and then redeploy on a different battlefield edge more than 9 inches away. Normal rules apply in the next turn. Good for zipping around, good for secondary objectives, good for repositioning. Yeah, not bad at all. So yeah, I couldn't find a duff stratagem in this. Oh, I will mention this one. Counterfire defense system 1 to 2 CP. Use the stratagem in your opponent's shooting phase when an enemy attack is allocated to a counterfire defense system model. To get that keyword, there are some battlesuits such as the Storm Surge that can pay an upgrade to get that keyword. The damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 1. If that model has a wounds characteristic of 14 or more, it costs 2 CP, otherwise it costs 1. So if you've got a heavy weapon pointing at your Storm Surge, it comes in hot, and you think it's going to do a lot of wounds, then you can pop this and make it just do 1. So yeah, that's really good. Really good. We then move on to prototype systems. So whereas, say for example, Space Marines can pay upgrades to make their apothecaries, chief apothecaries, etc., the Tau get prototype systems. So these aren't relics. These can be used on a model which may have a relic as well. So you can sort of really buff up your commander, for example, which is very cool. You have to pay points for them, and you also have to pay for the point. You have to pay the points for the weapon that they are replacing. So, for example, the alternating fusion blaster, you would pay for the fusion blaster, and then you would also pay for this. It's a 12-inch range, assault 1, strength 8, AP -4, D6 plus 2 damage. But the key thing with this prototype system is each time an attack is made with this weapon, if a hit roll is scored, draw a straight line between the closest point of the model's base or hull and that of the closest model in the target unit. Make 1 wound roll against the target unit and each other unit this line passes over. Very cool. Like a big laser beam, big fusion laser beam. This is really fun as well, the Thermoneutronic Projector. It's like a flamer on steroids, so you can give it to a commander or crisis model. It has a shooting and a melee profile. The stat line's the same, 12-inch range for the shooting version, assault D6 plus 2, strength 4, -2 AP and flat 2 damage, whereas the melee version, you get D6 plus 2 attacks in addition to the normal attacks that you would get for this weapon. Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. You would get your normal attacks on your commander, which I think is 4, and then you would also get D6 plus 2 attacks with this weapon. So you don't get the attacks on your commander plus D6 plus 2 to fight with this weapon. You only get D6 plus 2 for this weapon. And that was really cool. I really like that. Flat damage 2 as well. Strength 4, so you're going to be wounding space wounds on 4. But as we've seen, there are ways to increase your wound or make it +1 to wound. Yeah, that's really good. Can't believe we've got a prototype system other than the Onega Gauntlet to help us in combat, which is really cool. My two favourite prototype systems, though, are the Nova Surge Plasma Rifle, which is a normal-looking plasma rifle as per the new stats, Strength 8, -5 AP, flat 3 damage, but you cannot take invulnerable saves. It's only one shot, but, again, you know, 3 wounds, ignoring invulnerable saves, could finish off a character. Could kill a Custodian's Terminator. We've also got Resonator Warheads, which I think is actually my favourite out of the two. So it can go on a Commander or Crisis suit. It replaces a missile pod. It's assault free, so it's got an extra shot compared to a normal missile pod. It's strength 8, so that's an extra point of strength as well. -2 AP, flat 2 damage. But the key thing is, as long as you hit with this against an infantry, beast, or cavalry keyworded unit, until the your next shooting phase, that unit halves their move characteristic. That's very powerful, especially on a unit that is a cavalry. You know, that's an incredibly strong prototype system. Definitely one that I think I'll be using first. And so we move on to the Warlord traits in this book. And as you can see, we've got 2 charts. We've got one for the Tau Empire, so for your commanders, your ethereals. And then you've also got a choice of 3 Warlord traits, should you wish to have a Kroot Warlord, allowing you to create a Kroot army. The more I kind of look at the Kroot in this book, the more I'm like, actually, I really do fancy that Kroot Crusade army. So that could be one for the future. So let's have a look at some examples of the traits that you can take in this book. Straight away, first one for Tau Empire, Precision of the Hunter. Each time this Warlord makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll and you can re-roll the wound roll. Who does not want to be re-rolling all their hits and wounds? I mean, it's a brilliant Warlord trait. So good. So good. All the attacks that your commander gets, like shooting, absolutely brilliant. Through Unity, Devastation is back. It's still an aura. Affects all core units within 6 inches of the Warlord, and it improves their AP value by 1 on an unmodified wound roll of a 6. Combine that with the stratagems we spoke about just a few moments ago. Your fire base of fire warriors surrounding, say, a Cadra Fireblade with this. Maybe use a CP to give a Fireblade and a Warlord trait as well as your commander. And you're going to have a really nice fire base with some high AP shots protecting your objective. Or if you're pushing forward, you know, you could always utilise that with pulse carbines or something. Either way, it's still a good choice. We've also got through Boldness Victory, and your command phase, like 1 friendly core unit within 9 to the Warlord until the start of your next command phase. Each time a core model in that unit makes a ranged attack, an unmodified roll of a 6 automatically wounds a target. This is the second version we've seen, because the first one, I believe, is a stratagem as well. So getting around people's toughnesses, again, not having to worry about wounding, making sure you're doing that with high AP stuff is really good. Obviously, your name characters are locked to specific Warlord traits. I mean, there's nothing shocking there. For the Kroots, you know, they're not bad. They're not bad. Probably my favourite is Pack Leader. While a friendly Kroot unit is within 6 inches of the Warlord, each time you make a charge roll for the unit, you roll 1 additional d6 and discard 1 of the dice. They're not super strong, but at least they're there. They give you some more options. Makes a Kroot a little bit tougher. Okay. We then have the Relics proper. So these, obviously, you're allowed 1, and then you can use a stratagem to gain extra ones. They're not bad. They're not bad. Probably not as strong as the prototype weapons, but there are a couple of worthwhile ones to mention. The Onega Gauntlet is back. Strength 12, -4 AP, flat 3 damage. Who doesn't want a battle suit punching things in the face? What else have we got? We've got the solid image projection unit. Once per turn, the first time a saving throw is failed for the bearer, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 0. It also gives you a 4+ invulnerable save. I was quite tempted to take this on potentially a cold start battle suit, because then you don't have to give your cold start a shield generator to get that invulnerable save, giving you another point, because the cold star now, I think the enforcer as well, maybe even the normal commander, we'll check super against the data sheets, have 4 points now on them where they can put weapons or support systems. So yeah, that's quite a tempting one for me to give my cold star a vulnerable save, and give them, you know, this once per turn, the first time they fail a saving throw, the damage does nothing. So yeah, it's really good. Your opponent needs to be careful they don't, you know, waste a high-powered attack. The pure Tide Engram Neurochip is back, giving you CP back on a 3+ when you spend a CP on a battle tactic, Empire Epic Deed. Stratagem. We've got a sniper rifle. Where is it? Here it is. A sniper rifle for Crude Shaper. It's only 24-inch range. It's rapid fire 2, strength 5, AP -2, flat 2 damage. Ignores the lookout save rule and also inflicts a mortal wound in addition to normal damage on a modified 1 wound roll of a 6. Now, my absolute favourite relic in this is the Humble Stave. It's for an ethereal. It allows your ethereal to intone 1 additional invocation, and it also adds 1 to the roll to see if it's inspiring. So on the datasheet for an ethereal, you can choose 2 invocations, which we will come to soon. So this allows you to do both invocations, and also with that +1. Normally it's a 3+ to do an invocation. This will do it on a 2+. And when we go through these, I keep saying that, but when we do go through these, it's a well worth relic to take this one. Potentially in addition, you know, spend a stratagem, take an extra relic. It'll probably repay for itself. In fact, what's the next page? Invocations, the ethereals. So these are the 6 that you can choose from. So like I just said, you can choose 2 when you pick a basic ethereal. You have got Onshi and the other special character, I can't think of his name, they can pick additional ones, but your basic ethereal can choose 2, intone 1 in the command phase, or if you've got that Humble Stave, or if you use a stratagem, there is a 1 CP strat, allows you to do another one. There's some really good ones here. So Sense of Stone is back, gives you a Feel No Pain aura, a 5+ Feel No Pain aura for core units within 6 inches. You've got Wisdom of the Guides. Simply do this invocation, gain a command point. Straightforward. Pays for your Humble Stave probably, especially if you're getting it on a 2+. Brilliant. You've got Power of Tides, which helps your auxiliary units, giving them +1 to their wound rolls. So your crew, your Vespid. Storm of Fire allows you to perform an action on a core unit and still shoot. He's just really good. I really, really like him. And also for the ethereal, which we'll read in a moment. He's got other special rules. So in fact, we'll come to it in a second. Chapter approved rules. We've got 3 that you can choose from. As per the new chapter approved 2022, you can choose 1 from this book and then your other 2 from the core rules. One that I'll point out at this point is the targeting relay one. So you basically have 4 extra objective markers halfway along each battlefield edge. And you're basically installing relays on them. And depending on how many you install, at the end of the game, you tot it up. So if you only manage to do 1, you get 2 victory points at the end of the game. If you manage on each of the board edges, so it's in the center of each of the battlefield edges, if you manage to install 1 on all 4, you'll get your maximum 15 points for your secondary. I quite like this because there's quite a few things that can come in and out of strategic reserve, especially if you've got like stealth suits or ghost kills. Use the wall and mirror stratagem. The devilfish, as we've seen on Warhammer, using a stratagem that can go in and out of strategic reserve. So there are quite a few ways to do that and grab that. So yeah, it could be quite. I mean, obviously it might be hard on your opponent's battlefield edge, but not impossible. So it's quite a good rule. We're then going to go into Crusade. I'm not going to go super into detail on Crusade because I do intend to do a full series where we're going to chart out the system, which we're going to see in a second, and I'm going to go through my army, painting them up, taking them into a Crusade and seeing how they get on, and try and talk you through as many of the rules in detail as I can during the course of those videos and articles. So do keep an eye on spruesandbrews.com and our social media, especially for that, because I'll be posting details on there. But this is where you'll find all your content for Crusades. The main mechanic is really interesting. So you actually build up a star system of up to, I think it's 8 planets. Using charts in here, you work out what kind of planet they are, what the inhabitants are like. So all your different types of worlds. It tells you how you take over that planet, either by diplomacy or using military means. There is a bit where it shows you. Yeah, so you roll for your world, and it tells you some special rules once you've managed to capture that world. But what we're planning on doing in our Crusade, hopefully, is tying these to some of our other armies. For example, on a mining world, we'll link out the Genius of the Cults as they're doing their Crusade of trying to have an uprising and take over the planet themselves. So lots of interaction, and you can play around. And also, I'd probably say, although this is obviously designed for the Tau, you could very easily adapt this for your own army or your own Crusade to take over planets that maybe your opponent has or whatever. So there's a lot of, even this in a Tau Codex, I can't see a reason why you can't adapt this for other armies. But it's a really cool mechanic, very different. I love these ones that build on the narrative as well as obviously the gameplay. We've got requisitions that you can gain and spend to get extra prototype systems and such, and revitalize your units. We've got agendas to gain those extra points of the planets to get your requisition points, to get your experience to level up your units. You got exclusive battle traits. You've also got exclusive relics. Supernova launcher Serenity. Confirm on lonely once per battle. In your command phase, the bearer can use this relic if it does until the start of the next command phase. It gains the following ability. It's an aura. While a friendly Tau Empire, excluding Farsight, of course, law, is within 9 to the model, it automatically passes morale tests. Again, building on that Firebase idea that you've got. And to help with all these planets that you're going to be creating, and also in general to help create your heroes, you've got a handy guide to how the ranking system works for the Tau. You've also got, for example, Sept names. You've got a name generator. You've got a planet name generator as well. And for photocopying, you have also got this handy star chart, which I want to sort of copy a couple of, I think, and use. So that's really cool. It's a really good mechanic, and like I say, I hope to keep you all updated on how my Crusade's going over on the website. That's my intention. I really hope that I can get that done for you guys. Show off the Crusade. So we're going to come to some, we're coming towards actually the end of the book, but it's the real meat of the book now, and that's the data sheets and the core rules. A lot of you might be thinking, what's happened to For the Greater Good, which was the Overwatch rule that the Tau has had for quite some time now. It's gone. There is no For the Greater Good. You've got your normal Overwatch that you spend a CP on, There are upgrades you can give to some of your units which bring that stratagem cost down to 0 and allow you to do it on a 5+, but that's just on one unit, so no supporting Overwatch from other units. And also, because it's a stratagem, you can only use it once per phase. So it has gone. I did love it, but I think there's enough in this book that's replaced it. So, you know, it is what it is. I think the book is better for it. I think you've got better things than slightly improved Overwatch. What we do have is our tactical philosophies. So this was covered on Warhammer, so I'll quickly cover it now. At the start of the battle, you choose which of these to go into. Montcar affects battle rounds 1 to 3, and this is for people who want to play their tower aggressively. So you're going to gain extra armor penetration when you're shooting at units within, so for example, in the first battle round, if you're shooting a unit within 18 inches, you get extra pip on your armor penetration. You're also ignoring any modifiers when you're moving or advancing in the shooting phase. It just counts as remaining stationary. So yeah, it's like getting your opponent's face. Turn 1, get shooting. The ranges drop as you get to battle round 3, so you really need to be up close and personal by battle round 3 to be taking advantage of it. There is actually a secondary objective that plays off these as well, worth mentioning. If you prefer to maybe sit back a little bit, play the end game a little bit more, you can choose this one. So what this one does is nothing in rounds 1 to 2, but from rounds 3 to 5, it gives you exploding 6s on your to hit rolls. So an unmodified hit roll, the 6 would turn into 2 hits in battle round 3, but in that last turn, it's on a 4+. So anything that's alive at the end is going to be doing extra hits on a 4+. This could include stuff like the Storm Sturge, if that's still kicking about. Imagine that massive gun getting multiple shots. Incredible. I mean, by turn 5, it's probably dead, but you never know. It also allows units to fall back and shoot as well, which is good. You just subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. So it all depends on how you want to play, but the option is there with that one. Other general abilities, battlesuits. We've seen this on Warhammer, so battlesuits can shoot in combat like vehicles can. If they're shooting a heavy weapon, you do subtract 1 from the hit roll. Manta Strike is deep strike, ambushing predators, allows your crew to move 9 inches at the beginning of the game. And Inspired to Greatness allows your ethereal. I'm not sure why this rule just isn't on his data sheet, but anyway, Inspired to Greatness, an ethereal can pick a core unit within 6 inches until the start of your next command phase. While that unit is performing an action, it can make ranged attacks, so it can shoot and do an action without the action failing. The big one here is changes to marker lights, and this is by far, I think, the biggest and best change in this book. Now, previously marker lights were a shooting attack. It was a heavy shooting attack. Generally speaking, your Pathfinders never fired their pulse carbines because they'd be too busy firing marker lights. Everything relied on marker lights, seeker missiles, your +1 to hit. You had to have 5 marker lights on an enemy. It was just too much. It was just too much. So what's happened now is it's become a keyword, and it's become an action. So at the start of your movement phase, you will allocate your marker lights. So say for example you've got a unit of Pathfinders. Now Pathfinders are cool because you can actually do this. I'm complicating things. So let's say, for example, you take your Cadre Fireblade. He's got a marker light. At the start of the movement phase, wherever he stood, he would allocate his marker light hit. It would mean he has to stand still, but at the start of the shooting phase, so I'm probably best showing an example of this. I'm just going to use models that I've got to hand, so apologies, these are going to be unpainted miniatures. That's all I've got on this desk at the moment. But say, for example, we've got this Deathwatch Captain. He shines a marker light on this guy here. So we'll put a dice next to him, put a 1, At the start of the shooting phase, you then roll as many marker lights as you've got shining on that unit. So he's shown 1 on. So I'm going to roll a dice. On a 3+, the marker light is successful. So I've rolled a 6 there, so the marker light is successful. If I roll under a 3, then unfortunately the marker light didn't work. What you can then do is, if this model wants to shoot that model, he can expend that 1 marker light that was successful and get +1 to hit it. So imagine a unit of 10 Pathfinders firing at this guy. So we'd then pick up 10 dice at the start of the shooting phase. We would roll them, and any 3+s would put marker lights on him. So say, for example, 5 of them were successful, we'd have 5 marker light hits on them, and then you could choose 5 different units to fire at him and expend those points until you ran out, and give those units +1 to hit. I hope I've explained that okay, because when you read it, it sounds a little bit complicated. What makes it a little bit more complicated is your normal infantry obviously can't move during the movement phase whilst they're doing that action, unless you've got, you know, the Ethereal nearby or whatever. But Pathfinders, they can do it at the end of the movement phase, so you can move them first, get into a better position, then shine the marker lights. Your drones can also fire. They fire. In fact, your drones can fire marker lights at the beginning of the movement phase and still move. Which is cool without the action failing, as can vehicles as well. So it does get slightly more complicated there, but I still think it's a much better system, and that's all you can do as well. +1 to hit. There's no charts, there's nothing for seeking missiles or getting rid of cover. If you want that +1 to hit, you'll need to get a marker light on a unit and then expend it. I personally really like it. I think it's much better, and it means stuff like your pulse carbines on your Pathfinders can finally be used. You can finally shoot with your unit, which is brilliant, which is really good. We then move on to pages for the drones. So it's good that they put all these in one section. So if you want to bring up a rule on a drone, dead easy, they've got their own section. All their profiles are listed, all their movement values, all their special rules, and then all the different weapons or abilities that they have. Quite a few of these have changed. Guardian drone has a 4+ invulnerable save. Each time a range attack is made against this unmodified wound roll of 1 or 2 fails, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or model making the attack have. You've got the humble gun drone there. If we turn the page, you've got your missile drones with the new missile pod rules, so strength 7, -2 AP, flat 2 damage. Recon drones, pulse 6 exile drones, shield drones. So depending on what units you've got, obviously you can buy these for those units. Stealth drones are interesting now. So stealth field generator, this unit cannot be selected as a target for range attacks unless it's the closest eligible target to the firing model. So that's obviously, say for example, that's in a unit with a ghost kill. It means your ghost kill can only be targeted if a model is within 18 inches of it, or it's the closest visible target. So because previously the ghost kill was, I think it was like, you could stack it to be like -2 or -3 to hit. You can't do that in 9th. You can only be -1. It's capped at that. So that's a great way of improving the stealth capabilities on the ghost kill, as it should be. So we like that. I'm going to very quickly go through the data sheets. There are a few tweaks and changes, mainly on the weapons, a few ability changes, and also we've got the 2 obviously named commanders there. On these guys, on your commanders, they've got an extra support slot now. So if we take, for example, the Enforcer, he can have... So he comes equipped with a burst cannon as standard. You can replace that burst cannon with a cyclone iron blaster, fusion blaster, missile pod, plasma rifle, positional relay, shield generator, tau flamer, velocity tracker, basically all of the upgrades. But then he can also be equipped with up to 2 of the following. Oh, sorry, hold on. Oh, sorry, yeah. The commander in Force Battlesuit burst cannon can be replaced with up to 4 of the following. So basically, yeah, you can have 4 items. You can take multiple of the same weapons. So I know the Cold Star here, a popular build was to slap 4 fusion blasters on him. You can still do that, but for each extra weapon of the same weapon you add to him, the points go up. So it's to try and encourage you to have more battlesuits that are like a Swiss Army knife. You know, they'll have 3 or 4 different weapons on them instead of having the same weapon duplicated, to give you more options. You know, which I actually really like. I think it's a little bit boring having the, you know, a Cold Star with 4 of the same weapons. I know I'm very tempted to build mine with maybe 2 missile pods. So I know I'm duplicating a little bit, but 2 missile pods, the burst cannon and the plasma rifle. And then obviously taking the relics, give them the invulnerable save. We have also, of course, got these other war gear, such as the target lock, which now prevents your enemy from using light cover, or the velocity tracker, which adds 1 to your hit roll if the target you're shooting at has the fly keyword. You've got lots of options. One thing I will mention with these 3 commanders is they each have their own special rule. So the basic commander in Crisis Battlesuit, for example, his special rule, he can choose a Crisis Core unit, so a Crisis Battlesuit unit. That unit is then eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn which it fell back. And also you can ignore any to hit modifiers, which is very cool. If you instead take the Enforcer Battlesuit commander, his key ability is in the command phase. You can select 1 friendly Crisis Core Battlesuit unit within 9 inches until the next command phase. They get the objective secured special rule, so they're making sure they're locking down an objective. Whereas finally the Cold Star, same again. You pick a Crisis Core unit within 9. That unit can then advance automatically 8 inches, shooting them up the board, which again is super cool. The Cold Star can no longer do its like tons of flying in each of the turns. It has got a movement characteristic of 14, but it can't auto advance a crazy number like it used to. Instead, once per battle, it can basically teleport, so it can take off and land with all the normal deep strike rules, or it can fly back into strategic reserve and come back in the next turn. So it's still nippy, it's still the most mobile of suits, but it's not quite as flexible as it used to be. The Fireblade's back again with, you've still got his exploding 6s, aura, and he's also re-rolling hit rolls of 1 as well, if any Fire Warriors that are next to him. Create Shapers in the HQ slot, so obviously you can take him as a commander. The Ethereal we've spoken about quite a lot. Again, that's just summing up what I've said already earlier on. I think he's basically a must take unless you're taking the Farsight Enclaves. You've got your 2 named Ethereals. So Unvar, he knows 3 invocations, and he can intone 2 of them a turn. Whilst Anshi, I think, is the same. He knows 3, can do 2. And that's on the 2+, and that's on the 2+. So 3+ on the normal one, 2+ on the 2 named special characters to intone. Dark Strider with his new fancy new model. Long strikes here as well. He's just amazing. Again, locked to the Tau Sept. But, you know, crazy railgun. Ignoring invulnerable saves. Hitting on a 3. Mark Light makes him hit on a 2. Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Your Fire Warriors haven't really changed much. Or not that I can see. Your crew is slightly improved. Your crisis battlesuits, again with an extra point, an extra support system you can put on those, so you can really kit them out. Again, obviously duplicated weapons cost more, so maybe you want to go for three or four different weapons, or depending on what support systems you want. Still very flexible unit. Your bodyguards are back, your stealth battlesuits. Your ghost skill, your Farsight, your tactical drones. Piranhas and Pathfinders. I think Pathfinders now, with the new Markerlight rule, I think they're a must include. I'll definitely be taking some of those. Oh, one thing to mention, Pathfinders and Fire Warriors, that is the breaches and the strike teams, they can no longer be taken in units of 5. They have to be in units of 10. I know that's going to cause a lot of controversy. I know a lot of you may have just gone, what? But that is the rule. That they've changed to 10-man units now. So they are going to be susceptible to blast. What else can I say? It's a little bit disappointing. You got less units to do actions and stuff, but they're still cheap. Hopefully you can still get as many units as you want in there. But they are 10-man strong. No way to make them 5-man. Your Vespied, I don't believe have changed. You've got Crew Hounds. Your broadside battlesuits, their weapons have changed slightly. Again, obviously you've got support systems. I don't think there's any changes to the amount of weapons they can take. That's all still the same. Although interestingly, all these big battlesuits have actually got melee attacks now. So I think the Ghost Keel's got Fist at 2 flat 2 damage, +1 strength. But of course they don't get many attacks. Like he's got 3 at top profile. But it's just cool. He's got like -1 AP and flat 2 damage. The Riptide is back. He's now got a 4+ invulnerable save built in. You still have your Nova Reactor. And you just got to be careful you don't breach it. Still can give you a boost or improve your... give the Nova Shield now gives you a 5+ feel no pain instead of increasing your invulnerable save, because you've now got a 4+ base invulnerable save. Again, you've got a melee attack there doing flat 2 damage, -2 AP, crazy. Don't think there's really any changes to his Ion Accelerator that I can see. I could be wrong. Still a cool unit. The Hammerhead, we needn't say anymore. Railgun's mental, ignores invulnerable saves. He can re-roll 1 hit roll when resolving his attacks as well to make sure that Railgun shot hits home. Skyrain Devilfish, obviously you don't have to worry about Secret Missiles and Markerlights anymore, but they are still sort of 1 shot, the 1 use only. But they're pretty cool. I mean, they're doing 2d3 damage, which is ace. In fact, they're no longer once per battle either. They're actually just a missile rack, which is very cool. I think I'm getting confused with the destroying missile that the Storm Surge has. Your fighters are here, as well as all your fortifications. And then finally we've got the Storm Surge. So this guy now has a 4+ built-in invulnerable save. We've all seen his weapon profiles. His destroying missiles, he's got 4 of them. They're once per battle, so you can only fire 2 per turn as well. So you can fire 2 in the first turn, 2 in the second turn, then he's out. His cluster rockets is still 4d6, but at least they've got a pip of AP on them now. His deploy anchors you do at the start of the movement phase, allowing you, it's finished by the time you come to shoot, so you can do it in 1 turn. Means you can't move, but at least then you've got your... in fact, it doesn't give you a better ballistic skill. It allows you to re-roll your hit rolls when you deploy your anchors. So he's hitting on a 4, so Markerlight's hitting on a 3, re-rolling hit rolls if you deployed your anchors. So yeah, he's very, very cool. Quite a few upgrades you can give him. You can give him the counterfire defense system that we mentioned back in the stratagems. So yeah, he's a very tasty proposition now if you want some serious extra firepower in your tower army. We've then got a roundup of all the weapon profiles. and your points, and your glossary to finish off the book. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the Tau Empire review. And let's be honest, I think it's a very strong codex. I can definitely see the Tau performing a lot better at tournaments. I know there have been some Tau players have done really well with the 8th edition book, but I think we're definitely going to see them going up the tournament rankings. It's a combination of things, really. There's a few really powerful data sheets. I'm looking at you the Storm Surge, of course, the Hammerhead. I think the commanders are as good as they have been. Even the sort of the units you don't see a lot of, you know, the Crew have had a buff. The Fire Warriors, the Pathfinders can now use their weapons other than Markalites. Shooting in general has just been buffed completely. Markalites are better. Okay, lost the special Overwatch rule. I think it's been replaced with much better content though. I think it's got some of the strongest stratagems, especially those ones that combo well. Some great selections of Warlord traits, and some great prototype weapons as well. Combined with a great Crusade system. So it's a very, very good book. I still, don't feel I've got a full grasp on everything in here yet. And I think it'll take some time. I've not had a game with this yet to really know how strong it is. But on paper, I think this is going to be a book that's going to be hard to beat. So yeah, I'm looking forward to building up my Tau army, my Tau Crusade army, and posting the progress on Sprues and Brews. Our thanks again to Games Workshop for sending this to us, as well as a copy of Combat Patrol. And yeah, you can check out the written review in the link below. We've got some more content coming up on this channel very, very soon, so make sure you keep your eyes open for that. And yeah, until our next video, have a great time hobbying, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Bye!